তাহলে আমি 8টা থেকে লাইভ হব। হ্যাঁ, হ্যাঁ, আচ্ছা।
Okay, thanks.
অভিজিৎ স্যার,
হ্যাঁ আমি আসছি, ধরো 1 মিনিট, জাস্ট এ মিনিট। হ্যাঁ,
ওকে স্যার, ওকে স্যার।
হ্যাঁ বলো।
স্যার, এখানে কি ইন্ট্রোডাকশনটা আমি এখন দেব নাকি আপনি আগে
আমি একটু
ইন্ট্রোডাকশন
স্টার্ট
দেবেন?
করে দিই, তারপর তুমি দিও, ঠিক আছে?
আচ্ছা, ঠিক আছে স্যার, ঠিক আছে।
So, good evening to all of you. Welcome to the first virtual lecture series organized by Kolkata Vidyanagara Society for Academic Advancement. And today is the 4th day. And today we have with us Dr. Abhik Kumar Mukherjee and Dr. Rupam Mukherjee to speak on two different aspects, two different and very important aspects on accounting and economics. I hope you will enjoy the sessions. And I now request Sukarna Bhattacharya Madam to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Abhik Kumar Mukherjee. Sukarna, please.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Abhik Kumar Mukherjee, sir, is an assistant professor, senior scale, Department of Business Administration, the University of Bardhaman, West Bengal, since September 2014. Prior to the current affiliation, he was an assistant professor of accounting and finance in the Department of Commerce, Morning, St. Xavier's College, Autonomous, Kolkata, since July 2007. He is a graduate of St. Xavier's College, Kolkata, under the University of Calcutta, securing all university third rank, and did his master's in commerce from the same university, securing all university second rank. He was awarded MPhil securing highest aggregate and PhD in Commerce by the University of Calcutta. He was professional qualifications like PGDBA Finance from Symbiosis Pune and Accounting Technician Certificate ATC of the Institute of the Chartered Accountants of India. He is an alumnus of the prestigious Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. He has authored three books on accounting, specifically two on financial accounting and one on corporate accounting, and one book on entrepreneurship development published by the Oxford University Press. Moreover, he has been contributor to a number of global editions of 18 books of accounting and finance. Presently, he is acting as the principal investigator of the two ongoing major research projects funded by the National Commission for Women, Government of India, and Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, respectively. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I guess I'm clearly audible.
Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Okay. So good evening to my respected colleagues of KBSAA. Good evening to the students who have participated in this innovative lecture series, which is organized by this association for the first time. And at the outset, I thank KBSAA for giving me the opportunity to interact with the student, albeit virtually. But yeah, this is a great opportunity for me to again to connect to the undergraduate students. I am presenting my screen for the just confirm whether it is visible or not, so that I can proceed. Is the full screen visible now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So because this is just a 1 hour session, without wasting much time, let me get directly into the topic. So as we all know, this is a lecture series, virtual lecture series on finance and other allied areas. Now, I have taken the responsibility to deliver a lecture on the course Financial Accounting. And over the last couple of days, the lectures have already begun at a full force. And I have seen that the accounting lectures have been primarily on the advanced level accounting topics. So intentionally, in order to ensure that the young students of our university, that is the first semester students of the BCom program, get an idea or get a tutorial class, I may say, I have intentionally selected a topic for today's discussion as the adjustment entries. Now, I would like to tell all of you, I would just like to share with all of you that with my own experience and with the experience of my friends and colleagues who have been evaluating answer scripts, teaching accountancy in different colleges for so many years, after discussion with them, I decided upon this topic because that, quote unquote, this is a pain point for many of the students. There are different reasons for this. Number one, students are primarily taught for exams, for arriving at exam solutions rather than to have a good grip over the subjects. Secondly, this particular topic, adjustment entries, even though it is applicable or it was in the syllabus of higher secondary level as well, but many times these are skipped and the finalization process is learned by the student mechanically to a great extent. So with this intention to give you some fair idea, at least to remove some fogginess from your brain with regard to this topic, I want to dedicate next 1 hour to this discussion. So I begin from here. So first, the syllabus positioning of this topic. I would like to clarify again that this is meant for the program Bachelor of Commerce BCom, even though it is applicable for BBA, BMS programs of the university as well. And it is specifically applicable for the semester 1 students for the course Financial Accounting 1. And within the entire syllabus of Financial Accounting 1, I am focusing on Unit 2, which is titled as Concepts for Determination of Business Income. And for this determination of income, one of the most important conceptual area happens to be adjustment entries. Now, first, let us have a look at the illustrations on final accounts. Now, I will take you to a Word doc for making you explain this. Now, organizers, please tell me, is this Word doc visible?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay. So, dear students, just have a look. I've come from slide 1 directly over here. And I'm sure you people being at first year of the BCom program, now this term finalization of accounts and that too of profit oriented organization is not something which is Greek and Hebrew to you. This is something which is very much known to you. If I ask you, do you relate to this particular thing which I'm sharing on the screen? A caselet is given, you can say a numerical case is given, like Mr. Vimal Sengupta, a furniture merchant, submits the following trial balance as on 31st March 2022 with different ledger accounts appearing in the trial balance, and all these are known to us: the capital of the proprietor, the office furnitures, then stock on 1/4, purchase, sales, returns, uh, general expenses, wages, so on and so forth. So basically, we all are aware of this. I'm sure students, you are in line with me. And typically, a question which is asked is you are asked to prepare the trading and the profit and loss account for the year ended and the balance sheet on the same date after taking into consideration additional information. And in the additional information, a number of items, 5, 6, 7, 8 items like this are given. Like a credit sale which has not been recorded, a second-hand furniture was purchased and it has been resold but included in office furniture account, bad debt reserve, goods costing, something taken by the proprietor for private use, rent outstanding, so on and so forth. I'm sure, pretty sure this is a jana pehchana illustration hai aap log ke liye. All of you are aware of something like this. Ei thobrata cheno shokole tomra. So given this, again, I go to the next page. This is something a finalization of a profit-oriented trading organization. Now, this is again, I want to show you finalization of accounts of non-profit-oriented organization. This is also an illustration like the summary of receipts and payments of Calcutta Cricket Club is given to you for the year 21-22. And here the receipts and payments item in cash basis are provided to you, and certain additional information are again provided, that of the total subscription received, so much is for 2021, so much is for 22-23, subscription worth, so much is due for 21-22, 25% of the sum received as life membership fee is to be capitalized, salaries and interest are outstanding and receivable respectively, so on and so forth. And again, it is asking you to prepare the income, expenditure, and balance sheet. This is something which is known to us. So once we have a look at these two, the numerical case studies, now over here, I would like to ask you a few questions. Now, first, why are the additional information at all provided? You know, this is a typical problem. You have been practicing this, your college teachers have taught you, your private tutors, if any, have taught you. And this is the basic standard which is set in your mind. Now, my question is, why were the additional information provided? Next, do we always have such additional information with the balances of ledger accounts? Perhaps most of you think कि ऐसे ही होता है, a trial balance will be given, उसके साथ 5 से 7 items will be there, or a receipt payment will be given, and along with that a few items will be given. Perhaps you have this idea. Now, out of all the items given over here, are all of them of the same nature, or are there mixture of items which require adjustment entries, and there are some items which require rectification entries? If yes, how to identify? Now, in order to proceed over here, first and foremost, let us start with this idea that why do we at all need to pass adjustment entries and rectification entries? Given this kind of a situation, what is given to us is a caselet numerical case where certain ledger accounts, be it in the form of a trial balance or not even in the form of a trial balance, just some collection of ledger balances are given to us and certain additional information are provided. What are they basically? Students now understand this, what these things are, this one or this one. Now, these are all ledger balances. These are different ledger accounts. So respective accounts in the book called ledger, where at the end of the year, they have been balanced and these individual figures are appearing. Now, when the accountant sits for the finalization exercise, he or she finds that all the transactions which should have been incorporated in this ledger accounts have not yet been done for different reasons. Now, in order to ensure that these are incorporated in these ledger balances, they are identified first by the accountants, that what are the transactions which need to be completed, which need to be rectified if at all. And then fresh journal entries are passed to ensure that the books are complete. And then only by netting off the income expenses and losses against the incomes and gains, the operating result in the form of either profit or surplus will be determined for commercial or non-profit organizations respectively. And any adjustments required in the assets and liabilities will be done, and then that will be reflected in the balance sheet to disclose the true financial position of the organization. This is the basic background. That is, adjustment entries are required to complete the transactions in the ledger accounts which have been balanced, but still now something is still left to be done. So in order to complete that, we need to pass adjustment entries and rectification entries. Now we come to the point, do all these, how to identify that out of this 8, say for example A to H, are all these adjustment entries? The answer is a big no. Students, just focus over here. I'm just taking a few examples. If you look at point number A, additional information number A, it says that a credit sale worth rupees 2000 has not been recorded in the books. So from the language itself, it is clear that there has been no entry passed. So this is basically, in technical terms, an error of omission. So in order to pass this, we need to pass a rectification entry, and this as a result requires a rectification entry and not an adjustment entry. Similarly, the second item, second-hand furniture of rupees 2000 was purchased on a particular date for resale, was included in office furniture. So notice over here, this particular gentleman is a furniture merchant. As a result, a furniture purchased for resale is a goods for him. So when he is purchasing and reselling these things, the accounts involved should be purchases and sales respectively. So because it has erroneously got included in the office furniture account, this needs to be rectified. So for item B, additional information item B as well, a rectification entry has to be passed. But for items like C, D, E, F, G, and H, the remaining 6 items, what do we need to pass? I guess all of you know, adjustment entries need to be passed. Now, if I ask you why adjustment entry need to be passed, I'm sure many of you will not be in a position to say why these are adjustment entries, items for adjustment entries. You will say, sir, I know these are adjustment entries, but why? That question has to be understood, which we will be discussing in the next 45 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes. Same is the case with the second case, which I have shown here, of a non-profit organization, not for-profit organization, a sports club. Here also ledger accounts are appearing. From the receipts and payment account, we can identify few ledger balances. But again, you can see with respect to subscription, with respect to life membership fee, with respect to salaries outstanding, interest receivables, some items are yet to be over. So for these things, by reading the cases, by reading the items of additional information carefully, you can locate that there is no error or no omission. By reading through the sentences, small simple sentences, it can easily be identified. So for the time being, we understand that again we need to pass adjustment entries. But most important, at the end of this session, our learning objective, now at the beginning, let me tell you, my learning objective of our learning objective for this session is to understand what are adjustment entries, how can we identify adjustment entries, and how to pass the journal entries. What is the logic behind that? There is nothing called common in accounting. Accounting is basically a language. If you understand the language, you can always make your own sentences, I mean to say, pass your own journal entries. So coming back to the PowerPoint presentation, I hope the PowerPoint presentation is again visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, coming back from here, if I start from here, that the question is, why do we at all need to pass adjustment entries and rectification entries? It is coming from the objective of accounting. What is the objective of accounting? The simple objectives, the primary objectives, to determine the operating result of an entity for a particular period of time. Now, students, this operating result is either a profit or loss for a commercial profit-oriented organization, or a surplus or deficit for a non-profit oriented organization. So first objective is to determine the operating result, and second objective is to disclose the financial position at the end of that accounting period. And for this purpose, two financial statements are drafted. Every entity draft them. What are they? They are the income statement and the balance sheet. Sir, what is the income statement? The income statement for a profit oriented organization happens to be the manufacturing trading PL account. For a non-profit oriented organization, the income statement is the income and expenditure account. So students, don't think that adjustment entry is related only to commercial profit oriented organizations. Adjustment entries are there for non-profit organizations as well. So any organization जिसका भी आप finalization करते हो, even partnership में when you draft PL appropriation account, there are adjustment entries. At the corporate financial statement level, when you will draft the corporate statement of profit and loss, the balance sheet, over there also you will come across adjustment entries. So dear students, don't think that it is only restricted to quote unquote the chapter called final accounts. All are finalization. There is no one chapter called final accounts. Final accounts of trading concerns, final accounts of manufacturing concerns, final accounts of non-profit organizations, even preparation of final accounts from incomplete records, all are basically finalizations. And later on, when you will learn about consignment, hire purchase, departmental, joint venture, these kind of special transactions, special business related transactions, you will see those are also forms of finalization where our objective is to determine the operating result. So keep in mind, the term financial statement includes income statement and balance sheet. And in order to draft that, we need what? The balances of ledger accounts. So these financial statements are prepared with the balances of ledger accounts, which, dear students, don't mug up, don't memorize. Understand that ledger accounts may be given to you in an exam situation, in a practice situation, in the form of a trial balance or just as a paragraph format, not in the form of a trial balance. Just ledger accounts with the respective figures will after appear one after another with a semicolon in between. So we need to pick up the ledger balances. From there, we need to get into ledger normal nature ledger balances, that is the representing income, expenses, losses and gains. We need to net them off together on the debit and credit side of the income statement, be it income expenditure, be it profit and loss, to get the operating result, that is profit or surplus or deficit or loss. And ultimately, the real and personal accounts are to be kept for placing in the balance sheet to disclose the financial position. So ledger balances से हम लोगों को financial statements बनाना है. But as I have already told you in the introductory session, that at many a times the ledger balances do not incorporate or reflect all the transactions entered into by an entity related to those ledger accounts during that period. And as a result of this, we require adjustment entries and rectification entries. I hope it is clear that why we need to pass adjustment entries and rectification entries. In practical life, as an accountant, you will have to identify the situations and pass it. Dear students, even though things nowadays have become software based, system based, ERPs are there, SAPs are there, but the basic grammar of accounting does not change. Every accountant needs to know this for better understanding even the ERP operations. Now, some illustrations on adjustment entries. Let me take you to a case of profit oriented or a trading business. Let me go to the Word doc, page 4 of that Word doc. Organizers, is the Word doc now visible?
Yes. Yes, it is
Okay,
visible.
thank you. Okay, I am coming from slide 6 here. Now, students, let us take an illustration on adjustment entries, a case of profit-oriented trading business organizations. And the reference for this is the Financial Accounting Volume 1 book by Mukherjee and Mukherjee, published by Oxford University Press. So, students, just have a look at this. This is a typical, students, just tell me virtually that does this look like a typical final accounts, which you call rather a final accounts? Perhaps not. Some of you, if you face this in the question paper, you will be a bit surprised. Table ko tha hai, trial balance ko tha hai, that might be your question. But students, this is what I want to focus on. Just look at this. This case gives you, it's in the name of Mr. Sampat Bhattacharya, who intends to finalize his accounts for the year ended 31st March 22. He has approached you to do the needful, and in that respect provided the following information in addition to the ledger balances of 24 ledger accounts maintained in his books. So he has given 9 additional information like stock in trade on 31st March 2022, outstanding wages, salaries paid in advance, annual insurance premium paid, goods distributed as free samples but yet to be adjusted in the books. Debtors include something due from one Messa Smita, and creditors include an amount due to that lady as well. Accrued interest on investments, rent related transaction, and depreciation. And have a look, students. There are ledger balances. The capital 76,000, factory building 59,000, etc., etc. Are all the closing balances of different real accounts, personal accounts, and nominal accounts extracted from the ledger. All of you know preparation of trial balance is not mandatory. It may be prepared, it may not be prepared. And practically in this era of in this computerized era, trial balance is no more prepared because arithmetical accuracy is almost ensured by the systems. So ledger balances are important, and if something is missing, some information is yet to be incorporated in the ledger balances, that we can understand when these additional information are provided. Now let us understand the logical flow, where adjustment entries set in. So understanding the logical flow, the balances of ledger accounts, these 24, what do we need to do? They are to be closed, that is placed at relevant financial statements, be it trading account, PL account, and balance sheet. All of you know that the nominal accounts will be transferred to trading or PL account, as the case may be, depending on whether they are direct income, direct expenditure, or indirect income or indirect expenses by nature, by passing transfer entries or closing entries, as the case may be. Whereas the nominal and the personal accounts are made to appear under assets and liabilities in the balance sheet. So the ledger balances are placed over, I should go over there one by one. Had there been no item which has been missed out or jiska adjustment darkar nahi hai, just by placing these items in the financial statements, we could have got the profit or loss and the balance sheet. But when additional information appears in the case, that implies that some ledger balances need to be modified, that is updated to reflect the true position. So मुझे क्या करना है? We need to modify the existing ledger balances, update the existing ledger balances, और इसमें existing balances के figure change हो जाएंगे, बढ़ जाएंगे या कम हो जाएंगे, और some existing balances, some ledger accounts may not be there which may crop up while passing the adjustment entries. So वो नए नए ledger account हम लोगों को income statement या balance sheet logically जहां जाएगा, we need to place it over there. So what is the way out in this situation? The way out is passing adjustment entries. Now, dear students, just have a look. The first item given, okay, I'm just reducing the size so that it is visible to each one of us. The first item given in this case, in the adjustment, was stock in trade on 31st March, which students and some teachers casually called closing stock, but technically it should be called unsold stock or unsold inventory, not stock. So with respect to this, what adjustment entry has to be passed? The entry to be passed is stock in trade account debit to purchases. Why, sir? Let me tell you, students, when I was a student at your age, or say in class 11, when I first came across this transaction, मुझे लगा था कि अनसोल्ड स्टॉक, कुछ तो घटना नहीं घटा है. The teacher taught me in class 11 कि घटना घटे तो event होगा. When some event satisfies some conditions, like that must be measurable in terms of money, should engage a few parties, then it is called a transaction, and only transactions are recorded in the books of accounts. Then my question at that simple state of mind was, ये तो अनसोल्ड है, कुछ घटना नहीं घटा, तब इसका क्यों जर्नल एंट्री पास करना पड़े? ऑन सिमिलर लाइन, आउटस्टैंडिंग वेजेस मींस वेजेस तो पेमेंट नहीं हुआ, तो ये भी कुछ घटना नहीं घटा, तो उसका व्हाई डू वी नीड टू पास एन एडजस्टमेंट एंट्री फॉर दैट? सो एट दैट नोविस स्टेट, these kind of questions came to my mind. So now, if you are coming across also such a question, if you have such questions in your mind for past couple of years, now let me try to address them for you. Okay? So for me, most important is not what the journal entry is, but why the journal entry is. Okay? First and foremost, I will come back to this later on and I will share it with you. So, and these are available in the textbook. I have already written that in Financial Accounting Volume 1 by Mukherjee and Mukherjee, these case studies are available, these caselets. So, just we need to understand why stock in trade के साथ purchases को adjust करना पड़ता है, why wages के साथ two outstanding wages होता है, why for prepaid expenses, here in this case prepaid salaries, the journal entries prepaid salaries to salaries, why, ये हम लोगों को समझना है. So again, going back to the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. So what are adjustment entries? पहले ये समझे, then I will come to the numerical. That is the easy part and all teachers will teach you that. What are adjustment entries? Now, I have searched a few of the learned sources from the learned sources which you at student level refer to, especially students of Eastern India, and that too the Calcutta University, Bardwan University, Vidyasagar University, North Bengal University, Gaurbongo University, all these universities of West Bengal, as well as the private universities. These are the common books which are referred to. Now, this by one of the revered authors, by Basu and Das, the book which was first published in the year 1973, and we all have referred to this book in our student days. In the chapter 7 called Adjustment Entries, which is the current print, we find what the authors have written, that while preparing the final accounts for a particular financial year, several adjustments affecting the profits and assets or liabilities are often required. Now, dear students, it is not only the financial. I want to just clear some concepts to you. For a financial period, it can be a year, it can be a quarter. Whenever we finalize the accounts, several adjustments are required, as the authors have rightly said. The nature of the adjustments depend upon each individual item. Hence, no generalized rule can be established for all the cases. This is what has been put forward by revered professors Basu and Das in their textbook on financial accounting on adjusting entries. Another set of authors, Hanif and Mukherjee, in their book, I didn't find any chapter called adjustment entries or adjusting entries, but there is a chapter on trial balance where, while discussing adjusted trial balance, chapter 4, adjusted trial balance, the authors have written something like this. I quote, when final accounts are to be prepared, the ledger balances need to be updated to include effects of transactions that are either unrecorded or recorded improperly. For example, they have given outstanding expenses, depreciation, closing stock, etc. Adjustment entries are necessary to bring the ledger balances to their proper levels. Now, here I had a doubt at my student level that where this recorded improperly was given, the question that struck me was, for improper, incorrect recording, we need to pass rectification entries or adjustment entries. So I was at a dilemma at that point of time. But this is what we find in this particular popular textbook. In another very popular textbook, which was my favorite during my student days, by revered Professor Amitabh Basu, what we find in a chapter called Opening, Closing, and Adjustment Entry, adjusting entries are required to ascertain correctly the operating result. That is, it's a typing error, sorry, that is profit or loss made on accrual basis, taking into consideration items like outstanding prepaid expenses, accrued or pre-received incomes, etc. So in all these three books, which I personally studied as a student, and I'm sure many of my colleagues and the current students are also referring to, this is what we find. But as a student, I had a dilemma. All these are stating when to pass adjustment entries and a few examples. But there is no clear-cut principle that how to identify adjustment entries. कैसे मुझे काम करने में जब जाऊंगा, when I will start my own business and sit with my accounts, or if I am the accountant of a particular organization, how can I identify किसके लिए adjustment entry रहेगा? It doesn't end with exam में एक 6 नंबर का 8 नंबर का 10 नंबर का question आया और ये adjustment entry हो गया. Doesn't end with that. Now, on top of that, if I look at the current study mat of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, the father of accounting, the father body of accounting, this is what I find in the chapter on finalization of accounts. Under this para adjustments, the institute has put forward something like this. The fundamental principle of accounting is that the period to which the various items of income expenditure pertain should be coextensive with that period of account. Students, I will explain this. As such, before final accounts are drawn up, it must be ensured that the accounts which require adjustment So the ledger accounts which require adjustments have been adjusted. Okay? Again, by saying that by providing expense accrued and including income outstanding, excluding expenses, so on and so forth. So nowhere again I would say that in these four important sources, I did not find what adjustment entries are, and I'm sure some of you who are referring to these texts, these valuable sources, might be at a dilemma. That is what I want to address. I want to add value to you. So, what are adjustment entries? First and foremost, dear students, adjustment entries are journal entries. It is like any journal entry, A account debit to B. Yes, it is a journal entry, which are passed, as already the authors, existing authors have stated, at the time of finalization account. Not only once a year, but कभी भी quarterly अगर finalization किया जाए, half yearly finalization किया जाए, कभी भी finalization किया जाए, we need to check whether the ledger accounts are up to date or not, or whether they require further modification. If the second clause is true, we need to pass adjustment entries. Why required? Which are adjustment entries? Those journal entries which complete the spirit or the essence of the transactions and which are required to be passed for application of the generally accepted accounting principles. Source I have given. Students understand what these are. What are accounting principles? Accounting principles are nothing but accounting concepts plus accounting conventions. What are accounting concepts? Refer to our textbook, you will find that accounting concepts are nothing but the assumptions which are to be made, and conventions are the traditional practices which are followed. So accounting principles are nothing but the assumptions and the traditional practices which are followed by the accountants for maintaining the books of accounts and drafting the financial statements. Many a times we come across situation. Now I go to the example to explain this thing to you, the spirit and the essence of the transactions. Many a times what happens, the transactions are not fully complete by only recording the payment and the receipt. Say for example, for a particular accounting year, your salaries come to 1,20,000, out of which 5,000 has not yet been paid. So payment कितना हुआ है? Cash basis में क्या record होगा? Cash basis will record salaries account debit to bank 1,15,000. Out of 120, 5,000 is yet to be paid. ठीक है? But in accountancy, one of the important concepts or assumptions which becomes part of this generally accepted accounting principle, the gap, is the accrual concept, which says that you should recognize incomes or expenses on the basis of their occurrence, on the basis of their accrual. If a transaction has happened within the period, so it has to be recorded in that period only. So even though 5,000 has not yet been paid, उसे record करना है, तभी मेरा gap का application will be recorded in the books. So that is an adjustment entry. Similarly, for pre-receipts, come here students, for outstanding, for pre-receipts, ठीक है, prepaid, স্যালারি ज्यादा পে कर चुके हैं हम लोग, यहाँ 900 रुपए ज्यादा পেমেন্ট हो चुका है, বেশি দিয়ে দিয়েছি, এটাকে আমাকে কি করতে হবে, এইটাকে রেকর্ড করার জন্য আমার কিন্তু স্যালারি ভুল হয়নি, ওটা বেশি দেওয়া আছে 900 টাকার, what we will do, we will credit salaries account for the time being. Salaries is an expense account, it's a debit balance account, ওটাকে ক্রেডিট করলে it will come down to proper correct modified balance যেটা এবছর হওয়া উচিত, and because it has been paid, সামনের পিরিয়ড 900 টাকা পে করা আছে, প্রিপেড স্যালারিজ বলে একটা নতুন রিপ্রেজেন্টেটিভ পার্সোনাল অ্যাকাউন্ট আমরা ফর্ম করব, which is by nature asset and hence debited. So prepaid salaries to salaries is the adjustment entry for salaries paid in advance. Now in this way, almost all transactions you can understand. We do not have time to go through each and every transaction. আমি এবার তোমাদের বোঝানোর চেষ্টা করব what I mean by this one for completing the spirit or the essence of the transactions. Student, in some cases তোমরা এটা এটায় পাবে, I'm coming to this particular page 9. Please look at this particular transaction, goods in transit. Many times something like this happens. কি সেটা? Say for example, you have purchased goods on credit. The goods is the woolen, you are a woolen garment dealer in Kolkata. You have ordered woolen garments from Ludhiana in Punjab. The order was placed on 31st of March 2022. You have purchased goods worth 1 lakh. ठीक है? সারা বছরে ইউ হ্যাভ পারচেজ গুডস ওয়ার্থ 50 lakhs, তার মধ্যে এই 1 lakh আছে। সো ইউর পারচেজ, দ্য মোমেন্ট ইউ পারচেজড, because of accrual basis and because it is a credit transaction, you have passed the entry purchases account to creditors 1 lakh 1 lakh। আর এই 1 lakh নিয়ে বছরের শেষে অন 31st of March আমার টোটাল পারচেজ অ্যাকাউন্ট 50 lakhs এ রিফ্লেক্ট হচ্ছে, ফর এক্সাম্পল। সো আই রিপিট अगेन, 1 lakh একটা পারচেজ লুধিয়ানা থেকে হয়েছে অন 30th of March, whereas my year ends on 31st of March। সেই গুডসটা ওখান থেকে ডেলিভারি হয়ে গেছে ক্যারিয়ারের কাছে, ট্রাকে করে আসছে, বাট একদিনে লুধিয়ানা থেকে পৌঁছতে পারে না। আমার বুকসে পারচেজেস এই 1 লাখ ধরে সারা বছরের পারচেজ হয়ে গেছে 50 lakhs। এই 1 লাখটা এখনো আমার কাছে পৌঁছয়নি। I hope it is clear. Now this situation is called, in this situation the goods worth 1 lakh which is in journey is technically called goods in transit। अगेन আমি বলবো, আমি যখন অ্যাকাউন্টসে নভিস ছিলাম স্কুল লাইফে, তখন আমার এটা মনে হয়েছিল গুডস ইন ট্রানজিট, এটা তো আসছে, এটার আবার ট্রানজ্যাকশন কি, এটার তো পারচেজ হয়েছে, উই হ্যাভ রেকর্ডেড দ্য পারচেজ, এটা আবার কেন রেকর্ড করতে হবে। বাট লুকস ডিয়ার স্টুডেন্টস, এর একটা অ্যাডজাস্টমেন্ট এন্ট্রি হয়, হোয়াট ইজ দ্যাট, গুডস ইন ট্রানজিট টু পারচেজেস স্ল্যাশ ট্রেডিং অ্যাকাউন্ট। আই উইল কাম, কেন করতে হয় বোঝো। all of you just visualize the format of a trading account. It begins with, in a typical situation, begins with the opening inventory. It is debited with direct expenses like purchases, wages, freight inward, others, other direct expenditures, and it is credited with sales figure, that is sales revenue. It is credited with an important item called closing inventory। তোমরা এটা শিখেছো। কেন করতে হয়? Because in accountancy বা in business parlance, আমাকে and cost goods sold, and cost of goods sold। Now cost of goods sold বলে কোনো অ্যাকাউন্টস, কোনো অ্যাকাউন্টেন্সির বুকস অফ অ্যাকাউন্টসে মেনটেন হয় না ডাইরেক্টলি। আমরা কি করি, ওপেনিং ইনভেন্টারি, পারচেজেস, ক্লোজিং ইনভেন্টারি, ওয়েজেস, এই সব অ্যাকাউন্টগুলোকে মেনটেন করি, বিকজ দোজ আর এক্সপেন্সেস, এক্সপ্লিসিট পেমেন্টস হয়, মেনটেন করা হয়। তা সেগুলোকে মিলেমিশে অ্যাডজাস্ট করলে আমার আসে কস্ট অফ গুডস সোল্ড। সেই কস্ট অফ গুডস সোল্ড বার করার জন্যে, আউট অফ অল আইটেমস অ্যাভেলেবল ইন ওপেনিং ইনভেন্টারি অ্যাজ ওয়েল অ্যাজ পারচেজেস, যে আইটেমগুলো আমার কাছে অ্যাভেলেবল ফর সেল না, বা যেগুলো সেল হয়নি, we need to deduct that. So one such item is the closing inventory, কেননা ওটা যেহেতু সেল হয়নি, ওর রেভিনিউটা সেলস এর মধ্যে ধরা নেই, তাহলে ওর কস্টটা আমার ওপেনিং স্টক বা পারচেজেস মধ্যে থাকা উচিত না। সেই জন্যে we will have to reduce purchases। আমরা এই পারচেজটাকে রিডিউস কিভাবে করি? বাই পারচেজ হচ্ছে ডেবিট ব্যালেন্স অ্যাকাউন্ট, রিডিউস করার জন্য ক্রেডিট করতে হবে, পারচেজেসকে ক্রেডিট করি, আর একটা নতুন অ্যাকাউন্ট কল্ড ক্লোজিং ইনভেন্টারি বা স্টক ইন ট্রেড বলে ডেবিট করি, অ্যান্ড দ্যাট ইজ দ্য অ্যাডজাস্টমেন্ট এন্ট্রি। গুডস ইন ট্রানজিটের ক্ষেত্রে আমরা কি করি, বিকজ ওই 1 লাখ টাকার গুডসটা আমার এখনো এসে পৌঁছয়নি 31st মার্চের মধ্যে, मेरे पास ये अभी अवेलेबल फॉर सेल नहीं थे, सो मेरा जो सेल्स रेवेन्यू है उसमें इसका ये अवेलेबल नहीं था। যেহেতু অ্যাভেলেবল ছিল না, সো এটাকে আমি পারচেজেসের মধ্যে রাখতে পারি না। আমি এটাকে রাখবো হচ্ছে পারচেজ থেকে কমিয়ে একটা আলাদা বাক্সে, একটা আলাদা সেই বাক্সটার, সেই অ্যাকাউন্টটার নাম টেকনিক্যালি হচ্ছে গুডস ইন ট্রানজিট অ্যাকাউন্ট। সো এই গুডস ইন ট্রানজিটটাকে কেন করতে হলো? এটা কি কোনো ট্রানজ্যাকশন? আমি বলবো না। এটা কেন করলাম? কেননা আমার যে ট্রানজ্যাকশনটা ঘটেছে আর সেটাকে রিলেটেড যা ঘটেছে, তার এসেন্সটাকে কমপ্লিট করার জন্য, তার স্পিরিটটাকে কমপ্লিট করার জন্য আমরা এই এন্ট্রিটা পাস করতে বাধ্য হচ্ছি। কেন বাধ্য হচ্ছি? কেননা মাই অবজেক্টিভ ইজ টু দিস ওয়ান, মাই অবজেক্টিভ ইজ টু determine the correct operating result। কারেক্ট অপারেটিং রেজাল্ট আমি পাবো না যদি না আমি কারেক্ট কস্ট অফ গুড সোল্ড বার করি। I hope I could communicate to you what we mean by this, that journal entries which are passed for completing the spirit and the essence of the transactions, and also for honoring the generally accepted accounting principles। আমি এটা যেটা বোঝালাম, এটা অ্যাকাউন্টিং প্রিন্সিপালস দিয়েও বোঝানো যেতে পারে। In accounting principles, under accounting concepts, there is a matching, something called matching concept. সে কি বলছে? সে বলছে আমার রেভিনিউ আর্ন করার জন্য যা যা এক্সপেন্সেস লসেস ইনকার বা বিয়ার করতে হয়, উই নিড টু ম্যাচ দেম अगेंस्ट দ্য রেভিনিউ যেটা আর্ন করেছি। সেই লজিকে ক্লোজিং ইনভেন্টারিটা যেহেতু অ্যাভেলেবল ফর সেল হয়নি, ওটা সেলস রেভিনিউতে ঢোকে নেই, তার কস্টটা পারচেজেস থেকে কমাতে হবে। গুডস ইন ট্রানজিটটা যেহেতু আমার কাছে জমা পড়েনি, এখনো আসেনি, ওটাকে অ্যাভেলেবল ফর সেল করাতে পারিনি, ওটাকে পারচেজেস থেকে কমাতে হবে। সিমিলারলি এই তিনটে ট্রানজ্যাকশন, goods distributed as free samples, goods withdrawn by the owner for personal use, এগুলোতেও দেখো সব কটাতে পারচেজ অ্যাকাউন্ট ক্রেডিট হয় সেম ম্যাচিং কনসেপ্টের জন্য। কেননা যে গুডসটা ওনার উইথড্র করেছে ফর পার্সোনাল ইউজ সেটা ব্যবসায় অ্যাভেলেবল ফর সেল ছিল না, তাই পারচেজেসকে কমাও। এটা যদি ওপেনিং স্টকের আইটেম থেকে উইথড্র করতো, পারচেজের জায়গায় ওপেনিং স্টক আমরা ক্রেডিট করতে পারি। সিমিলারলি যে গুডসটা আমি স্যাম্পল হিসেবে ডিস্ট্রিবিউট করছি ওটাও অ্যাভেলেবল ফর সেল হলো না, গুডস আমার অ্যাভেলেবল ফর সেল থাকার কথা, হলো না, তাই পারচেজেসকে ক্রেডিট করছি। এমপ্লয়ীদের যদি ফ্রি স্যাম্পল হিসেবে দিই আমি আবার পারচেজেসকে ক্রেডিট করব, কিন্তু কোন অ্যাকাউন্টগুলো ডেবিট করব সেটা হচ্ছে কি পারপাজে ইউজ হচ্ছে গুডসটা। যদি উইথড্রন ফর পার্সোনাল ইউজ হয় বাই দ্য ওনার তাহলে ড্রয়িংস অ্যাকাউন্টকে ডেবিট করব, যদি ফ্রি স্যাম্পলস টু পাবলিক ডিস্ট্রিবিউট করি অ্যাডভার্টিজমেন্ট এন্ড পাবলিসিটি অ্যাকাউন্টকে ডেবিট করব, যদি আমরা এমপ্লয়িজদের দিই wages and salaries ke debit korbo. So if you understand this, if you think on this line, now dear students, it is not possible for me to go line by line for each and every item, but if you understand this line, eita jodi dhorte paro, you now explore yourself, নিজেকে question করো, worked out গুলো বই থেকে দেখো, ask your teachers in the college, at your private tutor or your seniors, ঠিক है, and try to get a grip over this particular thing. So I hope it is clear what we mean by adjustment entries. Now, as I have shown, some of the goods are all these যেটা তোমরা গুড সেন্ট অন কনসাইনমেন্ট, গুড সেন্ট অন পারচেজ, গুড সেন্ট ব্রাঞ্চ, এগুলো ক্রমশ শিখবে। আর স্টুডেন্টস আজকের এই পয়েন্টটা মনে রেখো যে এই সব কটায় তোমাকে অ্যাডজাস্টমেন্ট এন্ট্রি পাস করতে হয়। শুধুমাত্র সোকল্ড কোট আনকোট দ্য চ্যাপ্টার কল্ড ফাইনাল অ্যাকাউন্টস যেখানে ট্রেডিং পিএল বানাতে হয় শুধু সেটাতে করতে হয়, নেভার। দিস ইজ আ মিথ, দিস ইজ আ মিসকমিউনিকেশন টু ইউ ইয়াং ব্রেনস। Now regarding expenses and incomes, as I have said, outstanding expenses, prepaid expenses, pre-received income, accrued income, এগুলোতেও অ্যাডজাস্টমেন্ট এন্ট্রি করতে হয়। স্যার why do we need to pass adjustment? Again রিমেম্বার, আমাকে গ্যাপ মানে অ্যাকাউন্টিং কনসেপ্ট আর কনভেনশনকে অনার করার জন্য যে এন্ট্রি করতে হয় সেগুলো। আউটস্ট্যান্ডিং এক্সপেন্স মানে কি? এক্সপেন্সটা ইনকার হয়েছে কিন্তু এখনো পে করা হয়নি। সো অ্যাক্রুয়াল কনসেপ্ট, যেটা অ্যাকাউন্টিং প্রিন্সিপালস এর মধ্যে কনসেপ্ট অ্যান্ড কনভেনশন আসছে, অ্যাক্রুয়াল কনসেপ্ট বলছে এই পিরিয়ডে যা রিলেট করছে তোমাকে সেটা রেকর্ড করতে হবে, সেই জন্য আউটস্ট্যান্ডিং এক্সপেন্সেস রেকর্ড করতে হয়। তার এন্ট্রিটা কি হয়? আউটস্ট্যান্ডিং এক্সপেন্স কারেন্ট এক্সপেন্সকে বাড়াবে, এক্সপেন্স অ্যাকাউন্ট ইজ আ ডেবিট ব্যালেন্স অ্যাকাউন্ট, তাই ওটা বাড়লে ওটাকে ডেবিট করতে হবে। আর এক্সপেন্স which is yet to be paid, technically called expenses due or outstanding expenses, is a liability. Liability we know as per golden rule is represented by credit. So the journal entry goes expense বাড়ছে তাই expenses debit, আর নতুন লায়াবিলিটি তৈরি হচ্ছে তাই আউটস্ট্যান্ডিং এক্সপেন্সেস অ্যাকাউন্ট ক্রেডিট। সিমিলারলি প্রিপেড এক্সপেন্স, প্রিপেড এক্সপেন্স কি? একটা এক্সপেন্স আমি সামনের বছরও পে করে দিয়েছি, সামনের বছরের কিছুটা পোর্শন 2 মাস 4 মাস 12 মাস যতই হোক পে করে দিয়েছি। সো সেটা কি হচ্ছে? অ্যাজ পার अगेन অ্যাক্রুয়াল কনসেপ্ট, অ্যাকাউন্টিং প্রিন্সিপালের মধ্যে অ্যাকাউন্টিং কনসেপ্ট, তার মধ্যে অ্যাক্রুয়াল কনসেপ্ট কি বলছে? সেটা কি পুরোটা এই বছরকে রিলেট করেছে? না, বিয়ন্ড এবছর চলে গেছে, তাই কি করতে হবে? এবছরে বেশি খরচা বুক হয়ে গেছে, উই হ্যাভ বুক মোর এক্সপেন্সেস, এক্সপেন্স বিং আ ডেবিট ব্যালেন্স, বেশি ডেবিট হয়ে গেছে, কি করতে হবে? ক্রেডিট করো। আর তুমি আগে থেকে পে রেখেছো, আগে কাজ করে রেখেছো, সো দ্যাট ইমপ্লাইজ হোয়াট? দ্যাট ইমপ্লাইজ you have already given the benefit, you have made the payment, you will get the benefit in the future, so it's an asset. And as per golden rule, asset is represented by a debit balance, so the journal goes prepaid expenses to expenses. On similar lines, income বোঝা যেতে পারে। আমি তোমাদের বলবো স্টুডেন্টস, এটা ভেবো না যে অ্যাডজাস্টমেন্ট এন্ট্রি শুধু পাস করতে হয় when we are doing it for a profit oriented organization, non profit oriented organizationেও এই ট্রানজাকশন গুলো হতে পারে। And finally, with respect to fixed assets receivables, টিপিক্যাল ট্রানজাকশন যেগুলো ডেপ্রিসিয়েশন অ্যামোর্টাইজেশন, স্টুডেন্টস আমি বলেছিলাম এগুলো বোঝাবো, ডেপ্রিসিয়েশন এন্ড অ্যামোর্টাইজেশন, প্রভিশন, এগুলো কেন অ্যাডজাস্টমেন্ট এন্ট্রি? আগেন ফোকাস, অ্যাকাউন্টিং প্রিন্সিপালস যেটা খুব ভালো করে তোমাদের বুঝে নেবে একবার, অ্যাকাউন্টিং প্রিন্সিপালসের মধ্যে अगेन आई एम রিপিটিং আসছে অ্যাকাউন্টিং কনসেপ্টস অ্যান্ড অ্যাকাউন্টিং কনভেনশনস। অ্যাকাউন্টিং কনসেপ্টের মধ্যে একটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট অ্যাকাউন্টিং কনসেপ্ট হচ্ছে ম্যাচিং কনসেপ্ট। কি বলছে, যতটা রেভিনিউ আমি এবছরের আমার ক্রেডিট সাইডে নেব, ইনকাম হিসেবে কনসিডার করব রেভিনিউটা, ততটাই রিলেটেড এক্সপেন্স আমাকে নিতে হবে। সো আমার যদি রেভিনিউ আর্ন করার জন্য ফিক্সড অ্যাসেটস ইউজ করে থাকে, তাহলে ফিক্সড অ্যাসেটস এর পুরো কস্টের একটা স্লাইস অন সাম রেশনাল বেসিস, যেটাকে ট্যাঞ্জিবল হলে ডেপ্রিসিয়েশন বা ইনট্যাঞ্জিবল হলে অ্যামোর্টাইজেশন আমরা বলি, সেইটে আমরা প্রফিট বার করার জন্য এই রেভিনিউর বা সেলসের এগেনস্টে চার্জ করব। তাই এটা ম্যাচিং কনসেপ্টকে অনার করার জন্য হচ্ছে, অ্যাক্রুয়াল কনসেপ্টকেও অনার করার জন্য হচ্ছে, পিরিয়ডিসিটি কনসেপ্টকেও আমরা বলতে পারি অনার করার জন্য হচ্ছে। দ্যাট ইজ ওয়াই ইট ইজ অ্যান অ্যাডজাস্টমেন্ট এন্ট্রি। সিমিলারলি প্রভিশন ফর ব্যাড অ্যান্ড ডাউটফুল ডেটস, প্রভিশন ফর ডিসকাউন্ট অন ডেটার্স, এগুলোও হচ্ছে ক্রেডিট সেলটা এই পিরিয়ডে হচ্ছে বাট ম্যাচিওর করবে সামনের বছর। কেননা আমি ধরো 4 মাসের ক্রেডিটে বিক্রি করছি, তাহলে ফেব্রুয়ারি মার্চ জানুয়ারি মাসে যেগুলো বিক্রি করি ওগুলো তো বিয়ন্ড 31 মার্চ গিয়ে ডিউ হবে। সেই রিলেটেড যে ব্যাড ডেট রাইজ করতে পারে, সেই রিলেটেড যে ডিসকাউন্ট অ্যালাউ করতে হতে পারে, সেই ডিসকাউন্টগুলোকে আমাকে এস্টিমেট করে নিয়ে এই বছরের প্রফিটের এগেনস্টে চার্জ করতে হবে। তাই ম্যাচিং কনসেপ্ট, অ্যাক্রুয়াল কনসেপ্টের জন্য, পিরিয়ডিসিটি কনসেপ্টের জন্য আমরা এগুলোকে অ্যাকাউন্ট ফর করি বাই ক্রিয়েটিং প্রভিশনস, and hence provision for bad and doubtful debts, provision for discount on debtors are adjustment entries. সিমিলারলি যখন মিউচুয়াল সেট আপ হয় ডেটার এন্ড ক্রেডিটরের মধ্যে, এটা কোনো ভুল না। আমি একজন মিস্টার এক্স এর থেকে 1000 টাকা পাই, আর একজন ওনাকেই আমার 800 টাকা দিতে হয়, তা আমি 1000 টাকা ক্যাশে নিয়ে আবার 800 না দিয়ে আমি ওনার থেকে নেট 200 টাকা নেব। সেই 200 নিচ্ছি মানে আমি 800 ক্যান্সেল অফ করে দিচ্ছি মাঝখানে। কি ক্যান্সেল করলাম? ডেটার্স ক্যান্সেল করছি 800, ক্রেডিটার্সও ক্যান্সেল করছি 800। ক্রেডিটার্স ক্রেডিট ব্যালেন্স অ্যাকাউন্ট যদি ক্যান্সেল করতে হয় ডেবিট করতে হবে, ডেটার্স ডেবিট ব্যালেন্স অ্যাকাউন্ট যদি ক্যান্সেল করতে হয় ক্রেডিট করতে হবে। সেটাই এখানে দেখানো আছে যে যদি মিউচুয়াল সেট অফ করতে হয়, দ্য জার্নাল এন্ট্রি গোস ক্রেডিটার্স টু ডেটার্স। স্টুডেন্টস এগুলো ভালো করে শিখে রাখবে, ইউ রিকোয়ার দিস in future discussions as well. So after this discussion, if I may say, what are the features of adjustment entries? These are special type of journal entries which are passed to reflect the reality and portray the real picture of an entity. As I have already mentioned, they are passed to comply with the generally accepted accounting assumptions. Remember, they are not passed on the basis of some source documents like invoice or bill, এর কোনো ভাউচার তৈরি হয় না। এইগুলো তোমাকে সিচুয়েশনকে অনার করার জন্য, অ্যাকাউন্টিং প্রিন্সিপালসকে অনার করার জন্য তোমাকে পাস করতে হয়। and they are recorded in a special journal, not in a special journal like a purchase day book, sales day book, etc. It is recorded in the general journal which is technically called জার্নাল প্রপার। আর কখন পাস করতে হয়? অ্যাট দ্য এন্ড অফ অ্যান অ্যাকাউন্টিং পিরিয়ড ফর ফাইনালাইজেশন অফ অ্যাকাউন্টস। স্যার এন্ড কেন, ডিউরিং না কেন? ডিউরিং যদি চোখে পড়ে সেটা তো লেজার অ্যাকাউন্ট ওপেন আছে, তখনই আমি পাস করে নেব। ওয়াই ডু উই এট অল নিড টু অ্যাডজাস্ট? ওই যে বললাম, অপারেটিং রেজাল্ট আর ফিনান্সিয়াল পজিশন এই দুটো ঠিক আছে কিনা এনশিওর করার জন্য, আর অ্যাকাউন্টিং প্রিন্সিপালস দ্যাট ইজ কনসেপ্টস এন্ড কনভেনশনসকে অনার করার জন্য, যেগুলো কিনা ওই অ্যাক্রুয়াল, ম্যাচিং, রেভিনিউ রেকগনিশন এটসেট্রা। ক্লাসিফিকেশন এটাও আমি বললাম যে অ্যাডজাস্টমেন্ট এন্ট্রিজ কেন করি, টু কমপ্লিট দ্য স্পিরিট অর এসেন্স অফ দ্য ট্রানজাকশন। কিছু করি লাইক গুডস ইন ট্রানজিট, প্রিপেমেন্ট আর প্রি রিসিভড এর জন্য সামটাইমস উই পাস অ্যাডজাস্টমেন্ট এন্ট্রিজ, এক্সাম্পলস লাইক প্রিপেড ইন্স্যুরেন্স, প্রি রিসিভড রেন্ট which you get across in the numerical cases, adjustment regarding accruals like outstanding salaries and all this steps, and for estimated items like closing stock in trade, provision for doubtful debts. So you will find this in our book as well, that these are the different common adjustments and what are their classification, কোনটা accrual, কোনটা prepayment, কোনটা, এটা বুঝলে তোমার আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ডিং এ সুবিধে হবে। আর ফাইনালি যদি বলি, যেটা ওই একটা সোর্সে ছিল যে ইমপ্রপার রেকর্ডিং কে ঠিক করার জন্য, নেভার ইমপ্রপার রেকর্ডিং কে ঠিক করার জন্য we need rectification entries and not adjustment entries. So my question, are adjustment entries and rectification entries the same? Students, your answer should be a big, sound, strong, loud no. It's never the same. There is a fine line of difference which you should identify. Adjustment entries are passed কেন বলেছি, to complete the spirit or essence of the transaction and for application of GAAP, whereas rectification entries are passed to rectify omission, erroneous recording, casting, balancing, carry forward, ভুল শোধরানোর জন্য। এক্সাম্পল একটা দিয়ে রাখছি, যেরকম স্যালারি পেড টু এন এমপ্লয়ি রুপিস 20,000 পার মান্থ ফর 15 মান্থস, বেশি দিয়ে রেখেছি, 3 মাস অ্যাডভান্সে দেওয়া আছে নেক্সট বছরের, এইটাকে ঠিক করার জন্য আমায় অ্যাডজাস্টমেন্ট এন্ট্রি করতে হবে। কিন্তু ওয়েজেস পেড ফর ইনস্টলেশন অফ প্লান্ট, ওটা প্লান্ট অ্যাকাউন্টে যাওয়া উচিত। আমি যদি, কেননা ক্যাপিটালাইজ করতে হবে, আমি যদি রেভিনিউ এক্সপেন্স হিসেবে ধরে ওটাকে ওয়েজেস অ্যাকাউন্টে নিয়ে নিই, উই নিড টু পাস আ রেক্টিফিকেশন এন্ট্রি বিকজ দিস ইজ এন এরর অফ প্রিন্সিপাল। So to wrap up, adjustment entries are required to be passed at the time of finalization. Every organization, profit oriented, non-profit oriented, irrespective of their form, মানে proprietorship concern, partnership concern, undivided family, corporate organization, সকলকে adjustment entry করতে হয়. It is recorded in a specific book of account called journal proper, and it ensures correct ascertainment of operating result and fair disclosure of financial position. With this, I wrap up my lecture. Thank you, students. I'm Dr. Abhik Kumar Mukherjee, and this is my email ID, which you can note. If you have any query, you can please get back to me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The session was really very useful and it was very interesting. Thank you so much. Hope to hear from you soon, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, Abhik, for such a nice deliberation. I think that I should thank you for choosing this topic, which is very important. But most of the time, students try to avoid this in undergraduate level. Okay, and your deliberation is, I want to say that it's so in detail. At the same time, in a so simple manner, you discussed everything. So we are really thankful for this. Okay,
Now,
so
this
thank
is
you very
something which is very important for me, coming from my senior Ovijitda, and who is himself a chartered accountant. This is something which is very valuable, this feedback.
No,
Thank
really,
you, Navi.
really, in such a short period of time, you dealt upon an issue, which is really most of the time students avoid because they don't understand what is closing entries, what is adjusting entries, what is rectification of errors, how
Exactly.
they are different. Very, very important, very useful for the students. Okay.
And sir, if I may say, I feel the responsibilities on us, the teachers, because
Yes,
students avoid it because we do not make them realize the significance of this particular area. But that is why
exactly,
I selected this. So I hope this will give some idea to the students and they will discuss it with their peers as well as with their respective teachers.
exactly. That is important. That is a
Yeah.
big important point. Okay. So
So I
thank you
hope
very
there
much.
will not be any question answer session here. I tried to
No,
wrap it
not
up.
that. No, not that. No, not that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I tried to wrap it up within time so that the next speaker gets full time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that as well. So, can we start the second session? I just ask our second speaker, Dr. Rupam Mukherjee. Can we start the session now, or we shall wait?
Yeah, yeah, I am ready. I have no problem.
Okay, then we are moving to our second part of today's today's online or virtual lecture series, and today we have with us Dr. Rupam Mukherjee. I again request Madam Shukana Bhattacharya to introduce our esteemed speaker for the second session.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Rupam Mukherjee sir holds an MSc, MPhil and PhD in economics. He is currently an assistant professor of economics at Kobi Shukanto Mahavidyalaya, affiliated with the University of Bardhaman. His research interests span agricultural economics, development economics, and international economics. As the principal investigator, he submitted a minor research project funded by the UGC. The MHRD Government of India has entrusted him with creating content for MOOCs and economics UG or PG course for the SWAM platform. He is also developing study material for the NSOU's PG economics course. He has numerous research publications in Scopus and ABDC indexed UGC care listed national and international journals with a high impact factor and site score, as well as in peer-reviewed edited books with ISBNs published by reputed national and international publishers. His research papers have won Best Paper Award at numerous international, national, and state level conferences and workshops. He has chaired sessions at numerous international conferences as a resource person. He has given multiple interviews about the ongoing economic problems in India on All India Radio. He has also served as a peer reviewer, editor, and advisory board member for several prestigious international journals and edited books. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shukunna. Am
Thank
I
you.
audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Okay, okay. So, a very good evening to all of you, and thanks to all of you for being here today in this online platform. And at this outset, I want to convey my heartfelt gratitude to all my respected teachers, the invited speakers, and the entire organizing team of Kolkata Bidhannagar Society for Academic Advancement for providing me this platform to speak a little bit of my knowledge with the BCom first semester students by organizing this type of invited virtual lecture series. Now, today I will try my best to speak on the topic production with one variable input, which is included in the paper GE 1.1 CAG titled Microeconomics 1 and Statistics in the updated CBCS syllabus of the University of Calcutta. So I'm just sharing my slide. Now, is it visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, so I am keeping this in this format because I have seen recent times that whenever I am making it full screen and then by clicking enter, the screens get freezed here, and that's why I go on talking with the things, but the screen gets stuck with this particular, setup. So that's why I am making these types of setting. Okay. I think the things that has been written in the slides can be readable, isn't it?
Yes, it is readable, but it would be better if you just cross that format background.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, 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 yes. Actually, I was
yes.
preparing the slides
Now
when
I
I
hope
was.
now I hope it's clearly visible.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
so okay, okay. Now, well, at first, I just want to mention that by teaching the BCom and MCom students for a long period of time, what I have observed is that majority of the students find it difficult to pass this managerial economics paper because they lack a proper understanding of some key concepts. They try to memorize all the concepts without considering their logical basis or without attempting to relate those concepts with the real world. So, my intention in this 1 hour lecture is to promote an economic way of thinking among the students so that they begin to learn this subject with great interest and enthusiasm. And I hope this objective of this organizing of this type of virtual lecture series is also the same. Now, this is the syllabus structure of University of Calcutta in the semester 1, where you can see my students that the paper GE 1.1 CAG, Microeconomics 1 and Statistics, that is the 100 marks paper having the credit mark of 6. And here Microeconomics 1 carries 50 marks and Statistics carries 50 marks as well. And in the right hand part of the slide, I have shared the syllabus of this paper, Microeconomics 1 and Statistics. And it actually contains three separate units. The first one is demand and consumer behavior. The second one is production and cost. And the third one is perfect competition. So I think last day, Shushmita Di has already explained some concepts over perfect competition. Now, today I am going to speak upon Unit 2, that is production and cost. But due to the paucity of time, I will not be able to cover the entire thing because almost 10 lectures have been allotted for this particular section, having the marks 10. So, today I am just going to discuss one important aspect of this syllabus, production with one variable input. But even this production with one variable input need actually three classes to complete the understanding clearly. But here I am just going to give you some basic ideas regarding the production with one variable input case with lots of examples, with the lots of understandings relating with the real world process as well. So this is the thing that I am going to do in this 1 hour of lecture. Now, the learning objective obviously is to introduce some key concepts required to comprehend producers' behavior. You all know that uh, this production and costs are actually the behavior of the producers. Producers, they produce goods and services and they sell it to the market to earn revenues, and obviously their objective is to maximize profit in most of the cases. But nowadays, you people also know that profit maximization is not the only objective of the producers, but the basic objective of the firm is to maximize profit. Now, so production theory obviously relates to the producer's behavior, and when they are going to produce something, they have to incur some cost. So, this chapter of production and cost is basically the subject matter of producer's behavior. I will also try to describe the various types of curves that are used to illustrate the case of production with single variable input. In this lecture, I can only show two different types of curves, but if in the future we can go on delivering these sorts of lecture, then I can also discuss the other types of curves as well. And thirdly, and most importantly, my intention is to inculcate an economic way of thinking among the students. So this is the learning objective of today's lecture. The key terms that I will try to discuss in my lecture is the difference between the concept of inputs and factors of production. This is the first thing that I want to clear, because in most of the cases, these two terms are used interchangeably, but they mean something different. There is a fine thin line between these two, the concepts, but most of the cases we use them interchangeably. I will come to that. What is the difference between these two concepts? The second one is the fixed and variable inputs. The third one is the short run and long run in production. The fourth concept is regarding the production function. The fifth concept is regarding the concept of total, average, and marginal product of labor. And lastly, the law of diminishing marginal productivity. So these key terms will be discussed, and wherever possible, I will try to explain those terms with the numerical examples and associated curves or graphs that will also clear out the ideas. Now, to start with, at first we try to understand that what is the basic difference between inputs and factors of production. I have already told you that these two terms are being used interchangeably in most of the books, in most of the discussions. But inputs and factors of productions differ in the sense that factors of production are all those elements which are used directly or indirectly in the production process. Okay, so that may include the raw materials, that may include machineries, labor, land, which are actually used directly in the production process. You can easily understand, to produce any item, you are using raw materials directly into the machines with the help of labor and sometimes with the help of land to produce the output. But this production is also being influenced by government policies, transport and communication infrastructure of the nation, the financial services offered by the banks and insurance companies, obviously the size of the market and its economic situation. All these can affect production. You all know that very recently, due to this unprecedented corona pandemic, there was a huge market slump, and as a result, production got hampered. Now, this recession or economic slump, they are not directly used in machines to produce item, but these are factors that affect farms production. So they affect farms production indirectly, and these are the factors of production. So factors of production is an umbrella term that includes both the elements which are used directly in the production process, as well as those elements which are used indirectly in the production process. But Inputs, on the other hand, are those elements which are used directly in the production process. So, the examples that I have already given, in this particular example, you can easily see that the raw materials, labor, land, factory construction, these are all the factors which are used directly in the production process. So, the basic difference is that inputs are used directly in the production process, and factors of production are those which are not only inputs but also other elements that impact any production process. So, here I have shown it in terms of a in a set theoretic approach. You can see that all inputs are factors of production. You see the red colored circle, these are inputs, and the outside circle is the factors of production. So all inputs are factors of production, but all factors of production are not input in that sense of the term. But quite frequently we use these two terms interchangeably. In our analysis also, sometimes we will say inputs and factors of production by meaning the same thing. But you people must understand, basically, these two terms are different. So this is the first concept that I want to clear. The second thing that is important to understand is the fixed and variable factors of production. So from the very name, you can easily understand what should be the basic definition of these two factors. Now, here I can again mention that these factors of production and inputs are same right now. We suppose we are using it interchangeably. Now, fixed factors are those factors whose quantity cannot be readily changed when market signals that an immediate change in output quantity is desirable. Now, whenever any firm goes on producing more items, he have to take a sort of eye on the market situation. If market signals that all that the firm has produced cannot be sold, firm will accumulate inventories, then obviously firm will signal the market will signal the firm to cut back the production level. But if the firm experiences an excess demand in the market, so they will try to produce more. Now, when the market signals to a firm that more output should be produced, then for this production, firm has to employ more of different elements to produce more output. Now, there are certain elements which cannot be changed readily, instantaneously, when market demands that immediate change in output is desirable. Those factors which cannot be changed readily with the change in output quantity are called fixed factors. For example, land, factory buildings, heavy machineries, these are costly to purchase or costly to develop. So overnight, you cannot change the amount of these inputs used in the production process. So these are called fixed inputs. On the other hand, variable inputs or variable factors are those whose quantity can be changed readily when market signals that an immediate change in output quantity is desirable. So obviously this includes the examples like raw materials, some temporary workers, etc. You can change them instantaneously. Now, this concept of fixed factors and variable factors are very important to understand another key concept, that is short run and long run in production. Now, in general, by short run, we mean a very short span of time, maybe one day, a week, a month, or maybe 6 months or a year, short run. And long run means a long span of time, maybe 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So English dictionary will tell you the meaning of short run and long run like this. But in production theory, this concept of short run and long run are used differently. Now, short run can be defined as a period of time in which at least one factor of production remains constant or unchanged. So, in any production activity, a farm employs different types of factors of production. Some are fixed, some are variable. Okay, so short run refers to a period of time in which, when you are trying to change your output quantity, you can change all the inputs. At least one input you may not change. At least one. It doesn't mean only one. It may be more than one, but at least one input you cannot change. If the time frame within which at least one input cannot be changed is called the short run. On the other hand, long run is a period of time in which all the factors of production are variable. So here the long run refers to the period of time where you can alter all factors. No factor is fixed in the long run. So to understand this concept very clearly, let's take one example, one simple example to illustrate this concept. Suppose I am trying to produce some leather bags in my own factory. Okay. So if I want to produce the leather bags, what should be the ingredients? What should be the factors that will be necessary? In general, these factors of production are classified into fourfold classifications are there. We call it land, labor, capital, and organization. We all know this. Now here, for production of this, leather bag, we need obviously leather. Some stings should be needed to stitch the bags. So I am calling them materials, leather, stings, etc. I am calling them materials. The second one is a machine in which should be stitched. So material, this machine is the capital basically. So machine is the second item. So material is the first item, machine is the second item. The third item is obviously the factory building in which the bags will be produced. So I am taking the factory building as the third item, and labor. I'm taking this labor not only as the physical labor but also the managerial labor together. I'm calling it labor. So to produce this leather bag, you need four factors of production: materials, then machine, then factory building, and labor. Now, suppose initially I have produced 10 bags. With the limited amount of money that I have started the business. I do not know what should be the market situation, because in the market there are lots of good leather bag producing firms. So, if I produce some bags, how much market demand will be? So, since I am not certain about it, initially I am producing a little bit less amount of bags. Say 10 bags I have produced. And to produce these 10 bags, I have my factory building, I have one machine, I have employed one labor and some materials to produce 10 bags. And after producing these 10 bags, I am sending this labor to the market and asking him to sell those bags. Suppose my factory building is very close to some railway station. So the labor who has produced the bag, after producing, is now going to the railway station, sitting over there and selling the bags. As simple as this. Now, interestingly, I find the case that within half an hour, all the 10 bags have been sold. And this labor, he actually comes back to me and telling me that all the bags are sold within 30 minutes. So what the market is signaling me? The market is signaling me my bags have sufficient market demand. So suppose on the very second day, I have planned to produce more bags. So my production should be increased. I was telling now, when market signals more output should be produced, so here the market is signaling me more leather bags should be produced. So when I am going to produce more leather bags in the next day, what are the items that I can change instantaneously? Obviously, I can purchase more leather, more stings, that is, I can change materials instantly. I can hire another labor to produce more bags. Okay. But machine is costly. Machine, purchase of machine is costly. Until and unless I can sell a significant amount of bags into the market and earn some good, handsome revenue, it may be difficult for me to go for purchase of another machine because heavy machineries are costly. So I can see one labor to work for say first 4 hours and the second labor to work for the another 4 hours to produce more bags. And on the very second day, I can change two items, two ingredients. One is material and second one is labor. But still I cannot change two items. One is factory building and obviously the machine. So what should be the second day in my production activity? It will be a short run. Why? Because two factors are still fixed. At least one factor should be fixed. So here I am seeing that two factors are still fixed when I am changing my output. So suppose on the very second day I have produced 20 bags and the same process is going on. The labor is going to the railway station to sell the bags and he finds that within 1 hour all the bags have been sold. So he's rushing to me and saying that, sir, all the bags have been sold. So again, the market is signaling me that I have sufficient demand for these leather bags in the market. So on the day 3, I have to increase my production. For that, I need more material. I need even more labor. And obviously now maybe I can purchase another machine because by selling 10 bags on the first day and selling 20 bags on the second day, total 30 bags I have sold. Now suppose I have got some amount of money to purchase or invest for the second machine. So on the very third day, I am changing material, I am changing labor, I am changing machines, the number of machines. But still the factory building size is fixed. So on the very third day, again it is a short run. Now, the time when it will come that suppose I have estimated that on the very next day, I will not proceed like producing only 10 more bags. Now I will produce 100 bags. On the fourth day, I have suppose I have thought that I will now produce 100 bags because now I have got the confidence that every day when my seller is going to sell the bags, they are being all sold out within half an hour, 1 hour. So if the entire day is within my hand, then I can obviously produce more bags. So if on the very fourth day I try to produce more bags, say 100 bags, then not only I have to change the labor, I have to purchase more materials, I have to purchase even more machines, but all these cannot be accommodated on that limited size of factory building. So now the factory building has to be changed as well. Now, when you have thought to produce 100 bags on the fourth day, it takes time to shift to a different factory building, either to produce a broader factory building or to search for, to hire for a, broader factory building. It needs some time. So it may be the fact that on the fourth day and fifth day, you are searching for a larger capacity size factory building. So on the fourth day and fifth day, although you have the potential to produce more, but still you are producing, say, 30 bags or 40 bags due to the fact that your factory building is not enough to accommodate all those changes. Suppose on the very sixth day, you have changed to a new factory building where you have purchased more machines, you have accommodated more labor, and obviously more stock of raw materials. Then on the very sixth day, all of your factors of production are variable. So that becomes your long run. So until the fifth day, when at least one factors of production was unchanged, it was a short run. And on the sixth day, maybe you can change all of them. So from the sixth day, the sixth day itself is your long run. But try to understand two important things in this respect. On the very seventh day, when you are trying to produce, say, 120 bags or 150 bags, then again you are changing materials, you are changing labor, maybe you are again purchasing one additional machine, but now you are not changing the factory building size, isn't it? Maybe for 1 month you will stay with the same factory building that you have shifted yesterday. So again another short run begins. So you have to understand, long run you just experience for a certain point of time, but we operate in the short run and we always think for the long run. This is an important concept you have to understand. Every firm always operates in the short run, but it always thinks to be in the long run where he can change all factors of production. And the second thing to note in this connection is that for one firm, maybe it takes 6 days to change all the factors of production, like this firm, my leather producing firm. Maybe for another firm, it may take 1 year to ship to the new factory building. So for the second firm, this 1 year is short run. And for me, only 5 day is short run. So for the very 6 day, my long run begins, and from the 7th day, another short run begins. So, so you have to understand this. This short run and long run is a very relative concept in production theory. So I think now you can easily understand the basic difference that you get in English dictionary, what short run and long run says, and what in a production theory the short run and long run actually means. So short run is basically a period of time in which at least one factor of production should remain unchanged. But long run is a period of time where all factors of production should vary. So you can easily understand, in the short run, you will have both fixed cost of production and variable cost of production. But in the long run, there is no fixed cost. All costs are variable. Now, the next point that I want to highlight here is the production function. Now, I think you all know regarding the concept of function. It is a mathematical relationship between the independent and dependent variables. And here in the production theory, you all know that the items, those are used for any production activity, are the independent variables. For example, suppose you are using labor, you are using raw materials, you are using lands, you are using factory buildings. So all of these are independent variables. And by utilizing all of these factors, you are trying to produce output. So if I denote output as Q, okay, capital Q, and say I am saying that I am using only two inputs, say labor and capital. Labor is denoted by L and capital is denoted by K. Then the production function will look like Q is a function of L and K. Now, production function is basically a mathematical relationship between the inputs used and the output produced in any production process. And if the values of the inputs are known, and if we know the exact form of the production function, exact form, then we can easily find out what should be the maximum possible output production with those inputs. You must know that there is a difference between the functional form and exact form of a function. If I say y is a function of x, this is the functional form between the relationship between two variables y and x, isn't it? But from this particular notation, you only know that the value of y is going to be affected by the value of x, if we say y is a function of x. So, but I cannot say how, if x changes by 1 unit, y is going to change. That cannot be said from the functional form. It can be said only from the exact form. The exact form is, say, y equals to x plus 1. So in this function, you can easily see that not only y is a function of x, but if you know the value of x, you can say what will be the value of y. So if the value of x is 1, then y should be 1 plus 1 means 2. And again, if you say the production function is y equals to 1 by x, obviously it is also y is a function of x. But here, if you put the value, say 2, so if x equals to 2, then y will be equals to half. If y equals to 1 by x, and if you put x equals to 2, then y equals to half. But if y equals to x plus 1, another exact form of y is a function of x, then if you put x equals to 2, you will get the value of y equals to 3. So you can easily understand one functional form can generate different types of exact forms. So here I am saying that Production function is a mathematical relationship between the inputs used and output produced. And if the values of the inputs are known, and if we know the exact form of the production function, then from the values of inputs, we can determine the maximum possible output that the firm can produce. Here I have given one example. See the slide. Here, Q is a function of L and K. Obviously, we have assumed that there are two factors that are being used in production process, labor and capital. So the production function will take the form Q equals to L comma K. Now, if there are two inputs, labor and capital, and both are variable, then obviously you can understand it is a long run type production function, because we know that in the short run, at least one of them should be fixed. So since both of them are variable, so it must be a long run type production function. Now, if I assume that the exact form of this function is q equals to 2l plus 3k, I've taken a very simple linear equation, q equals to 2l plus 3k. If this is the production function, and this is the exact form of q equals to function of l and k, and if the values of L and K are known, suppose we are assuming that the value of L is 10 and the value of K is 10 as well, both the values are 10. So then by putting these values in the exact form, you can get Q equals to 2 into 10 plus 3 into 10 means 20 plus 30 equals to 50. So I think now it is clear to you what is production function and how we can determine the maximum possible output that the firm can produce, in this case 50 units, if the values of labor and capital are known, in this case is 10 units and 10 units, and the exact form of the production function is also known, which is Q equals to 2L plus 3K. And obviously, since two inputs are variable, we are using two inputs and both of them are variable, so it must be a long run type production function. Now, if in the short run, if I suppose now the short run begins, or we are in the short run, then we have to make one of them constant, isn't it? Because in the short run, at least one of the factors should remain unchanged. So among labor and capital, we should treat any one of them fixed. Now, we usually take capital as fixed because it is quite obvious that labor is relatively easy to change than capital in most circumstances. So, as a result, if we assume that in the short run, the capital stock is fixed at K0, so then my short run production function will become, usually, in the previous slide, I'm again going to that slide. See here, Q equals to 2L plus 3K. This was the production function. So here if K becomes constant, K0, then what should be the exact form of the function? Q equals to 2 into L plus 3 into K0. In place of K, I should write K0 because the value of K is now given. So now if it is 3 into K0, then this term 3 into K0 becomes constant. And we know that in a functional relation, we always write only the variables. So if I write Q equals to 2L plus 3K0, so then this part, this right hand part, 3K0 part is constant. So when Q can change? Only when L changes, isn't it? Now capital is no more a variable. Capital has now get fixed. So Q can change only when L changes. So I can write that the functional form that now I can write from this equation is Q is a function of L. Okay, previously it was Q is a function of L and K, but right now it is Q is a function of L. So this is the short run type production function. So sometimes in university the question is being asked that what is the difference between a short run and long run production function. So here you have to define what is production function. Then you have to give examples like this, how you are starting from a long run production function, you arrive at a short run production function, because these questions are being frequently asked in university exams. Now, if I assume that this value of K0 is 5, any arbitrary value we can assume, here I am assuming that the value of K0 is 5. So if it is 5, then see how the equation now becomes Q equals to 2L plus 3 into 5. I'm writing in place of k0 the value 5. And here you can get the equation q equals to 2l plus 15. Okay. And if the value of L is now 10, then you can easily find out the value of Q. The value will be 35 as shown in the slide. So here I have just tried to explain that how you have started with a long run type production function. Here you should remember that if the exact forms are known and if the variable values are known, then you can easily find out the amount of output, the maximum amount of output the farm should produce. You should also know this connection that the maximum possible output that a farm can produce, and quite often maximum the output that farm actually produces, there may be some difference. The maximum possible output that I can produce, that is my potential Q, and my actual Q that I am producing, there may be a difference. The actual Q may fall short of my potential Q. And if the actual Q falls short, suppose I can maximum produce say 50 units of output, but I am now producing only 40 units of output. So I am producing 10 units less. So this is called excess capacity. When you will learn microeconomics 2, you will see this excess capacity is the feature of any type of imperfect competition. Yesterday, Shushmita madam has taught you the perfect competition model, where every time the farm produces the exact ideal output, but this ideal output means the maximum possible output that you could have produced with the minimum cost. But quite often, farm produces output that is less than the maximum possible output, and therefore there can be excess capacity. So this is all about the concept of production function. Now, after having all these concepts clear, now I am entering with the production with one variable input case. Now, students, you can easily understand that unless you have these ideas clear, unless you can relate these ideas with the real world process, by just memorizing one function, just by vomiting those concepts in your examination scripts, may fetch you marks, but it cannot be understood properly. And in most of the interviews or in the higher studies, that will become a matter for worry, isn't it? And that I was actually telling before starting off my deliberation, that in most of the cases, students don't understand why something occurs and why this goes on. If you understand everything from the very base, then economics is just like child's play. It's not a thing to fear of. It is a child's play. Now, suppose production with one variable input means what? That there may be other input, but those inputs are fixed. Only one input is variable. So you can easily understand the basic form of production function will be Q is a function of L. So this means the short-run production function I am talking about. So production with one variable input means production where other factors may be fixed, but there is only one factor. Here I am assuming labor. So labor is the only variable input. So I have written the case, the functional form as Q is a function of L. Now, suppose I am going to a more general form of production function that usually occurs in real world process. You will learn it later on in if some future lectures can be delivered on this issue. I will clear these ideas. The exact form of production function, it is actually a cubic function. Why the cubic function, I will also describe on that day. But here, suppose the production function is like this. Q equals to 64L plus 4 into L square minus 2 by 3 into L cube. I have just, calculated things to produce this type of production function. Nothing heroistic in it. You can take any type of other production functions, but this production function actually obeys all the properties of a good production function with one variable input case. So that's why I have written this production function. So the form is not important for me. What is important for me is from this function, I have to derive or I have to understand three related concepts. One is called total product of labor. It is denoted by TPL, L in suffix. The second one is the average product of labor, which is called APL. And the last one is called marginal product of labor, which is called MPL. So now we are going to discuss these three important concepts, TPL, APL, and MPL, when production is with only one variable input. And here you can easily understand why I am writing labor, because labor is the only variable input. If you keep labor unchanged and capital stock as the variable factor, that is, if your production function is Q is a function of K, then we should have write total product of capital, average product of capital, marginal product of capital. The variable that is changing, the total product, average product, or marginal product should be named after that. Okay, so total product of labor, marginal product of labor, or average product of labor, since labor is the only variable factor here. Now at first try to understand what is total product of labor. By total product of labor, we actually mean the total output produced by any given amount of labor. If you are given any given amount of labor, say 5 units, 10 units, 20 units, if the labor amount is given to you and you know the exact form of the production function, then the value of Q that you can derive is called the total product of labor. See the example. I have here used the same production function that I have taken in my previous slide. Q equals to 64 into L plus 4L square minus 2 by 3L cube. Now suppose L equals to 3. Then my question is, what will be the total product of labor? Here by total product we means the value of Q. Q and TPL are same. Q equals to TPL. So if L equals to 3, then what will be my TPL? See, I have put the value L equals to 3 in this function. So the term will be 64 into 3 plus 4 into 3 square minus 2 by 3 into 3 cube. In place of L, I have put the value 3. And by calculating it, I have got Q equals to 210. So when labor equals to 3, my total product is 210. I think the definition is clear to you. For any given amount of labor, how much output you are producing, it is called total product of labor. Now suppose I am changing this amount of L from 3 to 6. Suppose L is now 6. Then what will be the value of Q? Again in place of L, now I am putting 6. Previously I put 3, now I am putting 6. So it will be 64 into 6 plus 4 into 6 square minus 2 by 3 into 6 cube. And by calculating it, you will get the value 384. So here you can easily understand that this 384 is the total product of labor when 6 units of labor are being employed. In this way, by taking any value of L, if you put into the equation, you will get the value of Q. In some cases, here I have chosen 3 and 6. That's why I have got the value of Q in full number. So in some cases, if I take the value of L equals to 1, maybe the value of Q will come in fraction. No problem. But you will get the value now. So this value is called total product of labor. So this is the concept of total product of labor. So what is how you can calculate it? You will be given a production function like this, and he will be said that the value of L equals to say 5. Then find out what will be TPL. So you will put only 5 in the equation and get the value. That will be the TPL for that particular units of labor employed. So this is the concept of TPL. Now come to the concept of APL. APL means average product of labor. It is defined as the output produced, means total output produced per unit of labor. আমরা বাংলায় যেটাকে গড় বলি, গড়, per unit of labor. So in the previous example, what we have seen, that when we were using 3 units of labor, I think my cursor is visible, when 3 units of labor was being used, the value of Q was 210. See, just check the last slide. See, when L equals to 3, the value of Q was 210. And when the L equals to 6, the value of Q was 384. Now come to this slide. So we have seen that when L equals to 3, then Q equals to 210. So by utilizing 3 units of labor, you are producing 210 units of output. So by utilizing 1 unit of labor, how much output you can produce? It will be TPL by L, means 210 by 3. See, the value is 70. So this is called the average product of labor for 3 units of output, 3 units of labor employment. When labor is employed by 3 units, the average product of labor is 70. But when 6 units of labor are employed, the total output is 384. So at that case, your average product of labor will be 384 by 6, means 64. So here you can see that by dividing total product of labor with the amount of labor employed, I can find out APL for that unit of labor employment. So this is quite simple. This is the formula. I have highlighted it. APL equals to TPL by L. And the third concept, that is the concept of marginal product of labor. Sorry. This concept is very, very essential in your, in all sorts of studies. Even if you are reading the market chapter or factor pricing in your coming semesters in microeconomics too, then these concepts will be very essential for you. Is marginal product of labor. Now, by marginal product of labor, we mean the change in output production, that is the change in total product of labor, due to the change in labor employment by 1 unit. Okay, so how much output is going to change if I change labor employment by 1 unit? See, there is a fundamental difference between the concept of APL and MPL. What APL tells you? APL tells you per unit of labor how much you are producing. But what MPL is telling you? If you change labor by 1 unit, if you change, then how much output is going to change? So this is the fundamental difference between APL and MPL. So here I have assumed that labor is changed by delta L. Here by delta, the triangle sign delta, this means change. Okay, so if you change labor by delta L, suppose output is changing by delta Q. So then MPL is defined as delta TPL by delta L. That is, by changing delta L units of labor, you are changing delta TPL units of output. So by changing 1 unit of labor, how much you are changing the output? Delta TPL by delta L. ঐকিক নিয়মের অঙ্ক যেভাবে আমরা করি. So it will be delta TPL by delta L. So this is the value of MPL. Again, you see the example where I have shown you that when L equals to 3, again you can see my cursor. When L equals to 3, the value of Q was 210. And when L equals to 6, the value of Q was 384. So how much labor has changed? From 3 to 6, isn't it? L was 3, now it is 6. So what will be the value of delta L? 6 minus 3 means 3. And how much output has changed? It has changed from 210 to 384. So what will be delta Q? 384 minus 210 means 174. So by changing 3 units of labor, you are changing output by 174. So by changing 1 unit of labor, how much output will change? 174 by 3. So MPL will be delta Q by delta L. Delta TPL by delta L and delta Q by delta L, same thing, because delta TPL and Q are same. So that's why the value will be 58, 174 by 3. So this way we calculate TPL, APL and MPL. Quite often in the examination, you will be given a function, a exact form of a function, and you will be asked to determine the value of TPL, APL and MPL for say 2 different types of labor employment. So this is the process by which you can calculate. Now this MPL is actually what? This is the rate of change in output with respect to labor. When labor is changing, how much output is changing? Please remember that here the capital stock is remain unchanged. Capital stock is unchanged, only labor is changing. Then what will be its impact on output? So that's why it is called, MPL is called the rate of change in output with respect to labor. Now we come to the concept of the law of diminishing marginal productivity of labor. Now, this law is quite familiar in production theory. It is actually an empiricism, it's been found in most of the agricultural activities in rural India or any rural sector of any nation, that if you keep the capital stock unchanged and go on increasing the labor force, your capital stock is fixed, your machine is fixed, your land is fixed, your factory building is fixed, like this, but you are going on increasing your labor employment, then what happens? Initially total output rises in an increasing rate. Please note the term, total output rises in an increasing rate. So the rate of growth of TPL is called MPL. So if I say TPL rises in an increasing rate, this means MPL gradually rises. Then after this employment of labor, initially MPL rises, you go on increasing labor force. This rate of increase goes on increasing and reaches to the maximum. At a certain level of labor employment, this rate of growth of total output reaches to the maximum. So when this rate of growth reaches to the maximum, we can alternatively say that MPL reaches to its maximum. And thereafter, if you go on increasing labor employment, then total output rises, but at a diminishing rate. Please remember, total output does not fall there. Total output rises, but at a diminishing rate. Initially, it rises at an increasing rate. And after that, it rises, but at a diminishing rate. What I have found in most of the cases when I check the university answer scripts, the students write initially total output rises in an increasing rate and then it starts to fall. After reaching maximum, it starts to fall. No, my dear. Total output rises at an increasing rate initially, and after a certain amount of labor employment, total output rises but at a diminishing rate. Now you will say, sir, how can we understand this concept? Now come to this diagram, come to this table. Here is a hypothetical example, what I am trying to explain. See, suppose these data are given to you. Consider the first two columns, labor employed and TPL. Suppose for employing 1 unit of labor, you were producing 3 units of output. If labor employment increases to 2, your output increases to 8. Okay. So when you are using 1 unit of labor, you are producing 3 units of output. If we can assume that when the amount of labor employment was 0, nothing was being produced. So when 0 units of labor were being utilized, we are assuming that total output produced was also 0. Okay. So if you have some capital but there is no labor, how you can produce output? So labor will come and they will utilize capital to produce output, isn't it? So when labor was 0, your output was 0. Now when you increase labor by 1 unit from 0 to 1, your output rises from obviously 0 to 3. The 0 is not mentioned in the table, but it is assumed. So then what I can say, how much the output has changed? It has changed from 0 to 3. So what will be MPL? Plus 3. That is, if labor is increased by 1 unit, how much output has changed? From 0 to 3 means plus 3. See in the second place, if it changes from 1 to 2, 1 unit, then output say changes from 3 to 8. So for the second units of labor employed, what will be my MPL? It will be 8 minus 3. This means plus 5. And similarly, if it is 3 and TPL is 15, it will be plus 7, 15 minus 8. In this way, the table has been framed. Here you can see after 3 units of labor employment, when MPL reaches to plus 7, this entire unit, I have given the second bracket, MPL rises when L rises, the first phase. See, TPL rises, MPL also rises in this phase. But now come to the second part. When the labor employment is 4, your output rises from 15 to 18. See, your output has risen, but your MPL is now plus 3. So it has fallen from 7 to 3. So TPL is gradually rising up to 5 units, but MPL starts to decline after 3 units. This is the important point I want to mention. So if it is 5, it is 20, so it means plus 2. If it is 6, it is observed that output is not changing at all. So by adding one additional units of labor, it is not fetching any additional output. So this labor is actually having the marginal productivity 0. We call it disguisedly unemployed labor. This labor thinks that he is working in the field, but his actual contribution to output is 0. So they can be siphoned off from this sector to say other sectors where more profitable investment can be made, more profitable employment generation can be made. And you will know that in Indian agriculture, there are lots of disguisedly unemployed workers. Suppose a farmer is going to his field with his wife and say children. The children are actually sitting in the field. Sometimes they give little bit of help to the father, but most of the cases their output contribution is 0. So although you are seeing that many people are employed in the agricultural process, but most of them are disguisedly unemployed. So disguised unemployment means the labor whose marginal productivity is 0. And if you increase labor employment beyond that, your total output will actually fall. It will fall from 20 to 18. So your marginal productivity may become -2. It can go negative. So marginal productivity usually rises up to 3 units of labor and then it starts to decline. It becomes 0 when MPL becomes 0, when TPL reaches to maximum, and thereafter it goes to negative. So this is the concept that I want to explain in terms of graph. I have tried my best to draw it in my hand. I don't know whether it is clearly visible or not. See, here I am measuring total product in the vertical axis and labor in the horizontal axis in both upper part and lower part of the diagram. And in the lower part, I have taken different units of labor employment, 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. The upper part, the TPL curve looks like convex. Okay, Banglaয় বলে উত্তল. But in the lower part, the TPL curve looks concave. বোধহয় বলে অবতল. So the two types of different shapes have two types of different implications in output production. See how? Look at the lower part. When 1 unit of labor was employed, how much output was produced? OE dashed. When labor increased from 1 to 2, how much output now you are producing? F dash. So how much output has changed from E dash to F dash? So E dash F dash is the initial change in output when you have changed the labor employment by 1 unit. So I can say that by 1 unit change in labor, the change in output is called MPL. So initial MPL is E dash F dash. And when you are increasing labor employment from 2 to 3, your output is growing by F dash G dash. And when you are changing your labor from 3 to 4, your output is changing by G dash H dash. So here you can see this E dash F dash, G dash H dash, F dash D dash. These are all MPLs. So if the curve looks concave, then one implication of this curve is that when L rises, your MPL gradually declines. Okay. So if the curve looks concave, then MPL curve becomes concave. MPL falls as labor rises. And on the other hand, if it is concave, then you can see that when 1 unit of labor is employed, OE units of output is being produced. When 2 units of labor is employed, OF units of output is produced. So here this gap EF, FG, GH, these are all the MPLs. So here you can see when L rises, your MPLs are gradually rising. So if the curve is like convex, then with the rising lever, MPL rises. And when it is concave, with the rising lever, MPL gradually falls. So how I can use this in my last diagram, what I am going to use here, is that I have already said the laws of diminishing marginal productivity has told you that initially with the rise in L, MPL rises. So initially the TPL curve will look like this, and after that the TPL curve will look like this. So initially it will be convex and then it will be concave. তা আমি যদি এরকম একটা সুতোর এই মাথাটার সাথে এরকম একটা সুতোর এই মাথাটা জুড়ে দিই, এইটার সাথে এই মাথার এই মাথার সাথে এইটা যদি আমি জুড়ে দিই, তাহলে ইউ ক্যান সি ইউ উইল গেট এ কার্ভ লাইক দিস। ওকে, এই যে এইটা হচ্ছে সেই কনভেক্স পার্ট এন্ড এটা হচ্ছে সেই কনকেভ পার্ট। অ্যান্ড হিয়ার ইউ ক্যান সি দিস পয়েন্ট যেখান থেকে কার্ভেচার চেঞ্জ হচ্ছে, ইট ইজ কল্ড দ্য পয়েন্ট অফ ইনফ্লেকশন। এখানেতে গেলেই টিপিএল এর ওই রেট অফ গ্রোথটা ম্যাক্সিমাম হয় L0 লেভেলে, আর সেখানেই এমপিএলটা ম্যাক্সিমাম হয়। আমরা বলেছিলাম ইনিশিয়ালি এমপিএল রাইজ করে, ইট রিচেস টু ম্যাক্সিমাম অ্যান্ড দেন ইট স্টার্টস টু ডিক্লাইন। কোথায় গিয়ে জিরো হয়? আমরা এর আগে দেখেছিলাম যখন টিপিএল ম্যাক্সিমাম হয়। সো ওয়েন টিপিএল ইজ ম্যাক্সিমাম, এমপিএল বিকামস জিরো। তারপরে আমরা দেখেছিলাম টিপিএল ফল করে যাচ্ছে অ্যান্ড এমপিএল নেগেটিভ হয়ে যাচ্ছে। So this is the relationship between TPL and MPL that we usually get, and that is due to the law of diminishing marginal productivity of labor. I hope the concept is clear to you. Now, these are some sample questions that can come in the university exam. Distinguish between fixed and variable factors of production, distinguish between short run and long run in production, define production function, state the law of diminishing marginal productivity of labor. What will be the value of MPL when TPL is at its maximum? See this slide. Value of MPL when TPL is maximum. You can see my cursor. When TPL is maximum, MPL is 0. Then this type of objective questions can come. In the long run, farm incurs, tick the correct alternative. Only fixed cost, both fixed and variable cost, only variable cost. You see, if it is a long run, you know all factors are variable. So farm will incur only variable cost. And then they will also ask you, what do you mean by returns to a factor? Now, what is returns to a factor? Here a factor means labor. So returns to a factor means when this a factor means labor changes, how output changes. This is nothing but this law of diminishing marginal productivity. And at last, these are the suggested reading that I will refer to you. The Microeconomic Theory by Ferguson, Gold and Leisure. This book is very good if you read the production theory from this part. That will be very helpful for all of you. So that is all from my part. I hope that I have completed just 1 minute before my scheduled time. It's very difficult to complete economics within 1 hour because lots of diagrams and concepts are there. But still, I have tried my best. Hope it will be helpful for all of you. And thanks to all of you for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The session was really very interesting and it was very helpful to hear from you again, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rupam Mukherjee, Dr. Rupam Mukherjee, for such a nice, lucid, and in-depth presentation. And I hope you have cleared many concepts related to today's topic, and it will be helpful for our students as well. And with this, we come to the conclusion of today's lectures, and we are going to meet you tomorrow once again with two eminent speakers. And with this, or since then, we are making goodbye to all of you. Have a nice good night. Good night to all of you, and goodbye for this today's session. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vijit sir. Thank you. Thanks to all of you. Good night.
Good night.